Hello everybody, slightly late today, a couple of minutes late, sorry for that. But welcome to this week's live stream. I've got a few little technical glitches, but I think they're going to get sorted out. So as usual, if you haven't been on one of these before, I do it normally every Friday, and we'll have a quick look ahead to the major announcements for next week, talk about what's going on this week in markets, then we'll jump onto the charts and take a look at things in a bit more detail and see perhaps where the opportunities might be over the next few days. Before we get into all of that, let's just do some of the housekeeping. As usual, when I'm going through the normal markets, the usual markets, if you have any markets you want looking at, if you just pop them into the chat box when you're here live, and we'll take a look at them. But let's just do a risk warning. The presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. Okay, it's quite a busy week next week. It feels this week that it has been a bit quieter. We had a lot of the major interest rate stuff out last week, but for next week on Monday, I think this PMI data might be interesting. We've got two batches of PMI data out of the US. So on Monday, we've got US PMI manufacturing data, and from memory, any reading above 50 means that part of the economy is expanding. Any reading below 50, it means it's contracting. Then on Tuesday, we've got Australian interest rate decision. Wednesday, New Zealand interest rate decision. Wednesday, again, we've got US services PMI. So again, the services purchasing managers index. So, you know, both of these PMI releases could be seen as a barometer for the health or otherwise of the US economy. Then on Friday, even though it's Good Friday, it's non-farm payrolls. So I'm not sure, I'm guessing the US market's shut next Friday. I never know with these things. Let's have a quick Google. But it is it's the payrolls a week today. I won't be here. I'll be keeping an eye on it. But I won't be here to do it. I'm just trying to see if the New York Stock Exchange is open. Maybe somebody in the chat knows better than I do. Because sometimes they do like a half day, don't they? So when is it going to be? April. Oh, it is closed. Okay, so US stocks are closed anyway. FX, I'm sure, and other bits will be trading, perhaps out of hours, perhaps indices will be out of hours. But it's a strange one next Friday that they're releasing the unemployment figures, and it's Easter, so no one's going to be around, but that's how the dates have fallen. So we'll see what happens. So no live stream next week, but back to normal the week after. A quick word from our sponsor, which is me. I've got a couple of things on this broker recommendation. So people often ask me, what broker do you use? And I often say, there's not a lot to choose between trading platforms. There's none that are really terrible, with one exception, who I'm not going to name, a company I think I traded with in 2016. And there's none that are really absolutely fantastic either. So, it's a competitive market. They're all okay, all good. And for me, what's been important for me is the tools I have with the broker to track my own performance. So that's always been more important for me. As long as I've got a good price, good charts, although I use, TradingView for the charts anyway, good execution. What I want is what is there within the platform that can help me with the trading. So I mentioned this last week. I've actually sorted out an extra account that I've put some money in, some of my own money in. So we'll trade with it today as well. But to find out, to go and watch, I've done a 10-minute video on this broker who I've traded with, I think I say in the video, off and on for 15, 20 years. I traded a lot with them over the last month to show why I think the tools they have are important. So after the video, I'll put the link in the description to this video. If you go to davidjonestrading.co.uk/broker, then the details is there. So this is a new website for me, actually. It's a new website address this week. The old website is still there for those of you on the trading course. I'm gradually going to shift everything over to this new website. So there's a bit more information on that new website as well. But if you go to the /broker bit, there's a short video. If I just bring it up and I'll show you. So this is the new site. And if you go straight to the new site, davidjonestrading.co.uk, you can click on broker and hopefully that works. There you go. And it's a 10-minute video where I talk about the platform and why I think it's good, the tools to analyze your own trading. But we'll do some trades perhaps on that platform today because I've got an extra account set up for these live streams. A quick word about the trading course I run. I've mentioned this a few times. Those of you who are watching the YouTube stuff last year would have seen that I was trading the account. I was trading a real account. Started off with £4,000. It ended up at the end of January, so after 3 months of trading using the approaches I talk about on the course, ended up just under £2,200 profit, closed profits. So it made, I think it was 55% return over those 3 months. Again, there's more information about the performance and all the trades that made up the performance on my website. If you want to see every little trade, you can scroll down and there's a spreadsheet there and you can click on it so you can see how that trading performance came about. I'm doing another run of it as well. I'm doing another 3-month publicly traded thing as well to build up, another 3 months of track record, and I'll talk about it more in the live streams in the future. So go to the website, Trustpilot reviews from other people who've done the course, very kind, 5-star reviews. There's a newsletter. So there's a newsletter I send out every Saturday, Saturday morning, Saturday lunchtime, free of charge. If you go to the website, it should pop up with a thing to put your email address in. Let me know if that doesn't work. So it's davidjonestrading.co.uk, and I'll put all the details in the description of this video. But any questions, drop me an email, or there's a form on the website to send me a question. All right, that's it. Let's get into it. Where do we start? Actually, I'll show you. I'll show you some of the trades I've got open at the moment. It's been a good week for me. I've got my biggest winner at the moment. I've been long the FTSE for a couple of days, so that's done okay. And I made a bit on the S&P this week on some of that run. Actually, I think I went short first of all. I was short at the beginning of the week. So that's done. That did okay. And then bought the FTSE a couple of days ago. So that's had a good run. Still going up. I got a stop loss, trailing stop on that trade. So that's all doing okay. I did a dollar-yen trade yesterday, which I really don't think was a very good trade. We might talk about that today if we have a look at dollar-yen. So this is the account. So that's my account. And then I've set up another account that we'll use for any trades today. But let's get into it. Where should we start? Let's start with stock markets, shall we? It's been a great week for US stocks. Let me just clear off some of these lines. If we start with the S&P, so coming into the week, this was here. I did go short on Monday, so caught a bit of that sell-off. And then we've had these really strong moves the last few days. I've said a few times on this live stream this year, I think we are, the downtrend. Why do I always pick the wrong line? The downtrend is over, in my opinion, for the S&P, the one that we've been in since last year, January last year. So I'm absolutely by the dip mode in the S&P. It feels a bit sluggish though. We had quite a bit of momentum here going into Feb, and it's stalled a bit since then. But for me at the moment, my target would be for a run back up to those highs from February. Short-term target around 41.90 or thereabouts, 41.90, 4200, let's call it. So for me, be a buyer of a dips. It's been a great week if you've been long stocks, because we've just seen fairly the last 3 days and so far into today, just fairly relentless strength. I think I'd gone short back up here maybe from Thursday and came out of it. But yeah, it's a really good run on the S&P. If we have a look at the NASDAQ, another one, the NASDAQ I think has broken a significant level. Here we go. So if we have a look at the NASDAQ 100, let's remove the drawings. So where we are now, this is the best level for the NASDAQ since August of last year. Okay, so the Nasdaq's had a bit more momentum than the S&P. You know, again, for me on the Nasdaq, you know, we had the downtrend, looked like that, broken out of it, bang, 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 and here we are. So for me, you know, the next target, maybe it's got a bit overextended in the short term, but I'd be looking for about 13.7 on the Nasdaq as an interim target, back to the highs from August of last year. Let's see how that works out. So any weakness, I'd be a buyer. I would be a buyer of the dip of the Nasdaq. Let's see how that turns out. FTSE, I said I did a FTSE trade this week. Hang on, let me bring it up. So I bought the FTSE at, where did I buy it? 74.76. So where was it? Back down here somewhere, a couple of days ago. And the FTSE again has followed these clearly, you know, other indices higher. I think it was interesting on the FTSE. I'll tell you what I thought was interesting for the FTSE and made me think about doing the trade was the move. When was it? Last week? Yeah, that was last Monday, wasn't it? I thought what was interesting in the FTSE. So we saw the FTSE run up to 8,000 in Feb, sells off back to 7.2, 7.3, spiked below it on a week last Monday, but we didn't have any fall through. So we had this major low, not major, but a significant low before the market ran, you know, 10% higher. Turned around, spiked below, and but we didn't have any follow through. Then it rallied, came back down to it on Friday of last week, holds above, and then earlier this week started moving ahead. So I ended up buying it. I'll show you where I bought it this week. So I ended up buying it in here. So that would have been Tuesday was when I bought it. So bought it in here, did all right for a couple of hours. Then I was underwater, but my stop was far enough away to not get taken out. And so far, it's done really well. I think it's my second biggest winner of the month so far. So we'll see. It's the last day of the month today, isn't it? We'll see how that turns out. But you know, there's the FTSE. So the FTSE's had a good run. Let's see what happens. But you know, I'm still bullish on stock markets. If we have a look at the DAX, the German market, you know, I guess it's going to be pretty similar. Again, let's just get rid of these lines for now. So the DAX is, you know, because the DAX had outperformed US markets over the last 6 months or so, 6-7 months. So interesting to see what happens next week. Do we get the DAX breaking through 15.7, which for me would then open up perhaps a run back to the old highs. Are they all-time highs? I think they must be, mustn't they? Yeah, back up to the all-time highs. So let's see. Let's see what happens. Perhaps in the short term, because of the moves we've seen this week, perhaps these stock markets are a bit overstretched to the upside. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if it starts selling off. But, you know, I'd still be a buyer for dips. So that's it. All bullish on stocks at the moment. Let's look at gold. I've seen a bit in the chat about gold. So let's look at gold and silver. Again, let's clear this off. I think I did a video, it was a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to say the same thing again now. With, you know, gold touched 2,000, we traded through 2,000 a week last Monday. I cannot see the argument for gold soaring away up here. So I was looking at a trade with options to try and profit from a slide in gold over the next few months. Because I think, you know, for me, okay, when Russia invaded Ukraine, gold pushed up near the old all-time high and then just fell off a cliff. And here we are now within $100 of those old highs. What's going to be the catalyst for gold to go higher? So for me, I'm absolutely leaning towards being short in gold up at these levels. You know, clearly, if it breaks 2,075, then I'd be wrong. So that's where I'd be thinking about having my stops. But I think it is interesting. We have seen a bit of dollar weakness. We'll take a look at the dollar in a minute. But I do wonder, up at these levels, are we going to see gold starting to roll over? So, there's not much to say for me at the moment, apart from, well, that's the last however many years it is on gold. The last 3 years, 2.5 years. Broadly speaking, it's a big sideways range. We're near the top of the range. I'd be thinking about going short. Let's see what happens. But again, it's had a good run on the shorter term charts. We've had a nice little trend all this week from the lows at 1944 to 1980, where it's trading now. So it's been a nice little run. I just personally can't see it bursting out to fresh all-time highs. Let's see what happens. And silver's been a great trend. I haven't traded it because I hate silver, as I often say, but it has been one of the, there's been quite a few trends this week, but that has been a great trend in the price of silver off the middle of March lows. Almost textbook, hanging around beginning of the week above the old support at 22.70, and here we are at $24. Let's take a look at the big picture. Let's have a look at that. So here we are in silver. Let's just get those things off. And I said in the past that for me, I think there are some markets that whatever you do, you never get it right, and silver has definitely been one of those markets for me the last couple of years. So that's why I have perhaps something of an irrational dislike of silver. But if I pick up on, you could even pick up on that as a downtrend, couldn't you? And that's going back to, when's that going back to? May 2021. So we're 2 years into that. So, that's interesting. So again, a bit like gold, if you thought the run in the precious metals had got a bit extended, if it's going to run out of steam, then we're pretty much here. So I think, for those of you who are fans of silver, I think it's an interesting market to watch next week around $24.50 to $25. Does that end up being the top in this latest run on silver? It has come up from, just the 10th of March, the price of silver has gone up 20%. That's a heck of a move, isn't it? 20% move in a major market. And here we are. So I think it will be interesting to see what happens up here. And we are very overbought for those of you who like the squiggles, the RSI, very overbought on that. Let's see what happens. But from a short-term trade, even if it did come under some pressure, there's absolutely an argument if you were looking at the shorter-term time horizon, like that. If it got knocked back a bit, it still looks like an interesting short-term trade. Just longer-term, I'd be a bit wary about it up here. Let's see. Let's come back to it over the next few weeks and see what happens. Okay, so that's stock. Let's have a look at the dollar, because we've looked at gold and silver, which clearly have benefited from this dollar weakness that we've seen. So this is the dollar index. So this is the dollar against a basket of different currencies. And I think it's interesting because we had a great run up in the dollar index going back to May 2021 into the highs of September of last year. Then we've had this run down. And I think it's a really interesting market to watch down here because we had this low put in Feb at 100.85. And we've seen the bounce back to 105. Interestingly, stops pretty much where the highs were in Jan. Is it building a base? I think that's the thing here. Are we seeing the US dollar index building a base? Are we going to take the view? Do you take the view? If I pick up on this bit of the trend, that it stopped sliding and we're trying to turn around, or is it just had a bit of a pause and it breaks lower again? So for me, this 100.85 level is really the big one to watch over the next week or so. So interesting one. It's not done much over the last week. We're trading now pretty much where it was on Thursday of last week. But let's see if it's gonna turn around anywhere. Then for me, that is the line in the sand. So let's see what happens. So that's the dollar index. Oh, the dollar yen. If I talk about the dollar yen trade that I did, so I did a trade earlier in the week in dollar yen here. So the trend had been down. We had a couple of days where the market had moved higher, and I went short up here with the stop loss somewhere up there, and it did okay. The market did sell off. So I came out of it, and then I was waiting to short it again all this week, and it kept going up. So I did the trade yesterday in here. So I'm short, underwater at the moment. only by a bit. So, well, 40 quid the wrong way, £42 the wrong way on the dollar yen trade at the moment. But I think I was just far too early. I think I was too obsessed with trying to get short again, because we've had a good trend, over the last week up in the dollar against the yen, even though there's a question mark: is the big trend still down? So lots going on of this trend here, I should say, from beginning of March. So lots going on in FX, but I think that low on the dollar index will be an interesting one to watch. And crude oil is another one that's had a really good run. If we go back over the last week and a half, last couple of weeks, so a week last Monday, crude oil was down at near $64, and here we are up at 75. So that's it's not quite a 20% move, but it's an $11 move in crude oil. And it's interesting because it comes after crude oil had been stuck in this sideways range since December. If you take it back a bit, so we've been banging around in this sideways range, and then broke out of the range just the middle of this month, which is, traditionally that's a bearish sign, but is a great reminder that the real world quite often doesn't work the same way the textbooks would have you think. So we saw it break lower, and then bang, we've seen it move all the way back up. So I think this is an interesting one to watch. Again, I would be expecting this strength to run out of steam. So we've had the sell-off through the bottom of the range, and the market traded back to its lowest levels since December 2021. So we had a 15-month low in crude oil this month. We've seen the market rally back up. We're not quite in the middle of the range. That range ran from $70 to about 84. So 77 is the middle of the range. I wonder if we start to see some nerves come back in for crude oil, and we start to see some selling come back in to this one. Does it start to run out of steam next week? At the moment, it is really strong at the moment. On the hourlies, another one. Let me tidy up some of this stuff. Another one that's had a great trend. And you want to be a buyer of the dip. It looks like that. And we've had a bit of sideways the last couple of days, and bang, we're off to the races again today. Let's see. So absolutely, short term, still strong, crude oil. But I wonder what happens as we start to push further back into this old range for the price of crude. On the RSI, it's still got a bit to go before it gets to overbought. But another interesting one to watch. So I'd be expecting it to roll over, but let's see what happens. Natural gas. I haven't traded this one for a while. Natural gas. Let's tidy it up. But I think it has. Yeah, it has, isn't it? It has just yesterday. So what was the low yesterday? So the low was 197, 196.8. So just today, the price of natural gas has moved once more to a multi-year low. So we've got to go back to August 2020. So we're at 2.5 year plus lows in natural gas. It's the old widowmaker strikes again. I did wonder back in late Feb, early March. I did buy it back here somewhere, wondering when we had this rally ahead of 2, was that finally natural gas trying to find a base? But you can see the way it's just nudged a little bit lower again these last few days, just edging below those old lows. It still looks pretty weak, Perhaps we'll get. It is a vicious market. We know natural gas. That Feb low at 206, and about, not even a couple of weeks later, the market was at 297. So it moved 50% in a couple of weeks, and then it's dropped about 30% again over the last 4 weeks. It is a crazy old market. Natural gas trend is still down. It's difficult to see a trade on the daily chart. If we flip it over to the hourlies, there's a bit of excitement. I would be a seller into that strength on natural gas. That is a funny old move, isn't it? But for me, if it shows, because it's been a great trend. This is on the short term chart now, obviously. But if we pick up, okay, it's had a little blip out of that trend line, but I'd say So what? So I'd be looking to sell short, and probably the closest I'd want my stop, the other side of, I don't know, 215. That's a pretty tight stop though. So let's see how it works out. But I would absolutely go against this spike in natural gas. But another interesting one to watch. Let's see what happens. Never a dull moment in the natural gas market, but another 2.5 year low today in natural gas. So that's that. What haven't we done? Let's have a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has pushed out again, hasn't it? I mean, Bitcoin is a buy the dip, I think. If cryptocurrency is your thing, we had, just to recap, we had the highs in Bitcoin up at 68 or so, 68,000 in November 2021. The market has slid downtrend all the way, and this recovery, has broken some big levels on the way up. I think the move for me through 25 was significant. The market is still strong for me anyway. Just yesterday, Bitcoin traded up. How high did it get yesterday? 29.4. So traded to its best levels since June 2022. So 9-month high on Bitcoin yesterday. So I'd be a buyer of a dip. If not, I don't really trade crypto, but I'd be a buyer of a dip. It'd be interesting. We've seen a lot of support come out around about 26,500. If we got a deeper sell-off next week, do we see more buyers come back in? But it absolutely does feel that it has, built up momentum again over the last, 4 months or so. So for me, buyer of a dip of the crazy Bitcoin. Let's see what happens with that one. And the target, my target initially would be these old highs. On the way down in May of last year, we saw it pause for a while with 32.6 sort of capping the top for Bitcoin. So I would be that would be my next objective. And then of course 1 million, and it'll be Lambos all around. Let's see what happens. See if how many people can get sucked in and pump this thing up higher. So that's all the major stuff done, isn't it? So there's a lot that's interesting at the moment. Stock markets, we've had a good week and we're still strong at the end of the week. Perhaps a bit overstretched going into next week, but looking to be a buyer of the dip. US dollar index, the weaker dollar has helped the likes of gold and silver. Are we going to see the dollar start to turn around down here? Gold, because I can't quite believe there's any compelling reason for it to go surging through $2,000 or surging out to fresh all-time highs. And the oil price, because it's another one that's had a great run over the last week or so. I wonder, does it start getting a bit vulnerable now we've pulled back into the old range? Let's see what happens. So what we'll do now, we'll have a look at the stuff that you want looking at, but of course, hang on, hold on a second, where's that gone? Oh, what's gone wrong here? Bear with me. Hold on. We'll come back to that. I'll figure it out. So now we'll have a look at some of the stuff that you want looking at. Let me just update something on this screen here. There we go. And then we'll get into it. Oh, that's what I was trying to show. Yes. So don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. Go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk. There's a whole load of information in there. You can find out a bit more about the broker I use in there as well. It's all in there, so have a look at that. Okay, let's get into it. Let's get into your stuff. Let's have a look. Natural gas impulsive candle was the first comment in today. Yeah, like I say, I wouldn't read too much into it, but how many times have we seen natural gas have a big move in a short-term period of time just to get slammed? Maybe this time's different. But let's see what happens. Gold, yeah, we looked at gold. Blackberry is on the move, up 8%. Is that, that was one of the, where are they? That was one of the old Wall Street bets ones, wasn't it? Back in the old days, Blackberry, here we go. Wow, that is a big move, isn't it? Let's have a look on the dailies. What's that look like on the daily chart? I mean, it's a horrible longer term story for Blackberry. that was some of the Wall Street Bets excitement, wasn't it? When it was a meme stock. And again, it clearly had its moment. I would be a seller into strength, I think, for BlackBerry when it stops having its moments. If we pick up on the trends, what would you say? I mean, I'd say, okay, you could maybe make the argument, perhaps the trend is ending. I would still be tempted to go short BlackBerry, but not at the moment, because clearly it's having a bit of a massive day. I wonder, can it get through $5? It's $4.50 at the moment, BlackBerry. I think for me, if it starts pushing through, let's say 5.30, then perhaps things have turned round. But no, that is an impressive move, I think, regardless of your view on BlackBerry. That is an impressive move. Can we view FTSE as it's showing divergence on hourly charts? We did look at it, didn't we? Let's have a look on the hourlies. I don't know if it'll show divergence. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it does. There is divergence, isn't there? So we've got the FTSE making higher highs on the hourly chart, though, and the RSI making lower highs. So it's known as bearish divergence. It can be a suggestion that the market is running out of steam. For me, I'm still quite happy to stick with my long FTSE trade at the moment. I've got a stop. Where's my stop? 76.09, and the market is currently 76.40. So my stop's about, 30 points behind at the moment. But yeah, I can see exactly what you mean there about the FTSE. Bitcoin, yeah, we looked at Bitcoin. I'm seeing a run to last summer's high on the NASDAQ and the SPY, the S&P. Let's have a look. What was last summer's high? It's here. It's here, isn't it? Yeah, I don't think that's too ridiculous at all. I mean, on the NASDAQ, it's only 700 points higher than where we are now. And just in the last 2.5 weeks, the NASDAQ has rallied 1,200 points. So we've only got to replicate, 70% of that move to hit those old highs. Again, let's see. Like I say, I think it is interesting. I do think, is it all getting a bit overcooked up here? But I also think that could present opportunities for next week if we did see a sell-off in some of these stock market indices next week. Could be an interesting one to see what happens. Can we have a look at Hex Crypto? Okay. As much as I hate these stupid cryptocurrencies. Now, which one is it? Why are there so many of these things? Hex. Okay, which one is it? Hex USD? Hex. See, that's why you shouldn't have too many cryptocurrencies. Just have Bitcoin, because it's too confusing for the likes of me. So I guess, is this Hex? Or is it something else completely? It's got a good trend, whatever that is. If that is what it is, it's good. I mean, getting massively volatile. So it went from 5 cents to 12.5 cents, and then back to 9. Again, buy over dip for me. Not that I'd ever buy anything like this, obviously, but we've got a nice little trend going on, haven't we? But I wouldn't be sinking my life savings into it personally. Your risk profile might be somewhat different. But no, a good trend in Hex, if that's the right Hex we're looking at, since January of this year. Copper. I looked at copper this morning, actually. I think it's been a bit mixed, copper, hasn't it? Hang on, have I got it? Hold on a second. It's a funny one, copper. The trend has... You could argue for up or down, I think, in copper, because up until whenever that was, end of Feb, the trend was up. It was moving higher, chugging along, everything was okay. And then we've had this, so it's sort of fallen out of the trend line, and it's been a bit down since Jan, and now it's sort of broken out. What would you do? Do you know what I'm going to do? We're going to go short. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go short copper. So I'm going to take the view, okay, the trend for the last few weeks has been down. Let's bring it up. What does it look like? Okay, it's a bit messy. Okay, the trend has been down for the last, since when? Since Jan. So I'm going to go with a trade. So we'll do this is the first inaugural trade on the live streams. Where does the stop go? Up there? Or maybe is that a bit too far away? Yeah, let's go 420 to keep the maths easy for me. Let's do 420 on copper. Let me see. I'm not quite sure. I hope this account. I did fund this account. Copper chart. I've got two types of copper. Hold on a second. So I'm going to be a seller at 420 and sell. Oh no, not quantity. 1. Stop loss. Same 4. It's a bit too much risk. £1,000 risk on one trade on a live stream is a little bit too much. How small can I trade? Okay, there's another copper I could do. Hold on a sec. That one. Okay, so I'm saying, I can't remember what I said now. I said 420 for a stop, didn't I? Hold on a sec. Let's bring it up. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Okay, so I'm going to sell 1. Stop loss 420. Okay, so I'm risking £216. Okay, let's do it. Can I trade any smaller than that? 0.1? No, 1. Okay. So we're going to short copper. Really going with that downtrend with a stop loss up at 420. So if the price manages to trade up at trade up to 420, I'll be stopped out the trade. But I do wonder, just going back to that chart, do we see a bit of a drift lower again for copper? Like I say, it is a bit of a mixed picture. But let's put the trade on. There we go. So we're short copper. Let's see how that works out. But there is absolutely an argument to take the view, that maybe it sells off a bit, and we see buyers come back in 370, 390, where it was next time. I think it's a bit of a confusing one, copper at the moment, but let's see how that works out. Aluminium. Do I strut aluminium futures? What's that? MCX. Have a look at that. You could make an argument for being a buyer, couldn't you? We had the big sell-off from March 2022, so a year ago. And then we've had this base since October last year. You could absolutely make an argument for being a buyer. If you thought that aluminium was making a base down here, we've seen the market trend a bit higher, sells off, holds above 201, the lows from Jan. So if I was a buyer now, the absolute closest I would want my stop is the other side of 200. Let's see what happens. So I don't think it's going to go to the moon anytime soon. But it's absolutely an argument for being a buyer. We did have, a bit like copper in a way, we had a bit of a nice little trend chugging along. And it has sort of fallen out of that, but it's not really fallen off a cliff. So for me, I'd rather be a buyer than a seller on aluminium. Even though you don't like the FTSE, it's true, I have changed my rules this week. Well, actually the last few weeks, I've decided to focus on a smaller number of markets, because normally, when I was doing that publicly traded account thing from November through to January, I traded a whole load of markets. And it was fun. Traded it with real money, took that £4,000 account to £6,000 or whatever it was. But by January, February, I was a bit shattered from looking at 25, 30 markets every day. I mean, I use shattered. It's not like I'm working down a mine, is it? It's to keep a sense of perspective. So I've decided in the last month to focus on a smaller number of markets because I think it's just hard work. So I focus on NASDAQ, S&P, and the FTSE in the last month, the dollar, oil, and bonds, 2 bond markets. So that's why the FTSE. That's why I've started looking at the FTSE again after never really bothering for a long time. I feel, thank God it's Friday. UST2Y. What's that? UST2Y. Is that a treasury something or other? Don't know. It's not coming up on my search. There's an OPEC meeting on Monday apparently for crude oil. What is going on with crude? Is the recession over? Yeah, I'm not sure why it's moved so. It's had that run. Again, to keep a sense of perspective, it's had a great run over the last couple of weeks. Okay, but we are now is at the bottom end of the range it was in since December. Yeah, so absolutely, in percentage and dollar terms, it's a big move in crude. But you could take the view, well, perhaps the sell-off, which was, I think, partially driven by concerns about the banking sector when we had all that Silicon Valley Bank stuff a few weeks ago, perhaps the sell-off was overdone, and it's going to go back into, oil goes back into its old range. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Natural gas. I've lost my place in the chat. There's a lot of nat gas chat. Bond market. No, I don't get that bond market. To the moon. Hello, everyone. Why do you look at Bitcoin futures chart instead of the spot? Absolutely no reason. Only because that is what I've added to my watch list. But the spot is a more valid market. What do you think about BioNTech? Who's BioNTech? Let's have a look at that. We looked at those, didn't we? BioNTech SE on the Nasdaq. I mean, I think we must have looked at these because I've got some lines on there. I suppose, you know, the thing has gone from 189 down to 123 in what, about 4 months, 3 months, whatever it is. So if you absolutely wanted to be a buyer, then there's an obvious place to have stop losses. And for me, it's the other side of 117. Let's see how it turns out. But it's one of these, you know, I often say I'm not a fan of these. It's not really a bombed out stock, is it? But it was up at $460 back in August 2021. So it's interesting down here because this has always been a bit of a base for BioNTech, hasn't it? So if it's going to rally from anywhere, this is the area. But the trend is just sideways, isn't it? Dollar calendar and dollar Canada. So the dollar, Canadian dollar. Let's bring that one up. US dollar, CAD. It's tricky. For me, it's a tricky one. I mean, it's the range for the last 6 months has been sideways. We're halfway through the range, so it's a bit of a coin flip. I think for me that one. So nothing too exciting. I mean, it's been under pressure the last few days as we've seen the US dollar weaken. So yeah, there's not a lot going on in that one for me. You know, longer term, you'd argue to be, or I'd argue to be a buyer of the dip, because we've got bigger uptrends going back to whenever that is, June 2021. So, but yeah, nothing too exciting in the short term. And New Zealand dollar, US dollar. Look at that. It's just a bit. These are daily candles. Don't forget. These aren't 5-minute candles. It's a bit scrappy, isn't it? A bit nowhere. I don't know. So again, probably not much for me. Perhaps a buyer if we had to take it down to the hourly chart. Oh, yeah, there is absolutely on the hourlies. There's the argument for being a buyer, isn't there? Just on the dailies, because the moves have been fairly tight. You can't see it. So for me, if there was a, you know, we're at the top. We're near the highs from last Thursday. So perhaps risk of it being a bit vulnerable up here. But if it got knocked back towards 62, the low 62s, it looks like a buy. I mean, it does, but it does not look exciting at all, does it, on the daily charts? I suppose it is, you know, chugging along, isn't it? We looked at copper. Let's have a look. I was looking at platinum this morning. I think platinum again is one of those. It's a bit all over the place for me at the moment. So the trend had been down. I could have drawn that trend line a bit better. So the trend on platinum had been down. Was this at the start of a break? If you'd have bought the break of the downtrend, you'd be massively wrong-footed because it dropped pretty quickly afterwards. I don't know. You know, again, for me, I mean, I'd maybe be a buyer of weakness, but there's not an obvious trade there for me. The trade I would do, if it ran up to the old highs, I'd look to go short again. I suppose, again, we've got to look on the hourlies. Even that looks a bit messy, actually, doesn't it, on the hourlies, to try and figure out where the trend is. So, not much for me. Perhaps in the short term, it's going to continue this little recovery higher. I would just be a bit wary if it trades back up in that 1020 to 1100 area. So it's not one that really jumps out at me. Asana, the old workflow doodah thing. Seems to have got bombed out as well, didn't it? So it hit a high of 140, and now they're trading at 20. I used to use Asana in a previous life. Absolutely hated it. But I don't think I'm a good judge of how good or not it is. What would you do here? We had a big move, haven't we? We've gone from, in Jan, $12 to almost doubling into March. So as usual, the question for me is, if I'm gonna buy something, where's my stop loss gonna go? You know, so I'd rather buy a dip in Asana. You know, an aggressive trade would be to be a buyer now. Yeah, be a buyer now, and put a stop the other side of this low, where it gapped higher. I'm guessing, did it gap on earnings? Yeah, they had earnings out in the 8th of March. Okay, so they gapped higher on the earnings, sold off on the earnings. So I suppose the trade is one trading idea, a short-term trade. If it's going to pop a bit higher from here, have a stop the other side of 18.49, which is still a 10% stop, but that's because it's been pretty volatile. So it's an interesting one, but more of a short-term interesting one for me. Do you believe in the Elliott wave theory? Is it in your area of expertise? I think it's utter rubbish, Elliott wave theory. So I am not a fan of Elliott wave at all, because one of the problems is I think, you know, clearly there is always an element of subjectivity to looking at a market. You know, otherwise everyone would see everything the same way and there'd be no market. Everyone would be buying, everyone would be selling. With Elliott wave, I think the subjectivity gets taken to a whole different level again, you know, because it's all about the wave counts, as I'm sure you know. You know, and you have 5, the market might trend in waves of 5, then correct in waves of 3, and then carries on with a 5th wave extension thing. And the problem is, it's so subjective picking up the wave counts, you know, so I do not subscribe at all to Elliott wave. As ever, I'd say, if someone uses it and make money, more power to them. But I think it overcomplicates markets and it breaks things down to a level of suggested predictability that isn't there. So I'm not a fan of the Elliott wave. Just look at Tesla. We did look at the FTSE 100. I saw someone said FTSE. It's a bit choppy on Tesla, isn't it? So Tesla, what do we think? I'd still be a buyer of the dip in Tesla, but we've been a bit sideways, haven't we, since Feb of last year. Unity. So what's Unity? Let's have a look at those. Unity software. Again, I mean, a lot of because we've seen something of a comeback for US indices, you know, we are seeing some of these stocks that have been stop sliding. So again, as a speculative punt, if I was a buyer down here, you know, the closest I want my stop would be the other side of $24, which is only the lows from Jan. That's still a 20% stop, 20% distance. So yeah, maybe it is making a base here. Let's see what happens. And what was the other one? Roblox, is it kids games things, isn't it? I mean, it's another one. It just looks a bit boring, doesn't it? They've stopped going down, and they're sort of just going sideways, aren't they? And again, it's another one that's halfway through the range for me. So for me, there's not a trade. If it starts pushing sort of 48.50, it looks like a short. If it drops below 30, it looks like a buy. And at the moment, we're just in the middle. Yeah, so we do have absolutely a bit of a trend going on. So from a really short-term trade, not that I would do it. You know, there's a big gap there, wasn't it? Was that earnings? Yeah. You could absolutely make the argument for being a buyer from a short-term point of view. You know, so it looks, I don't know, something like that maybe. Be a buyer and perhaps a stop under $41 if you thought we were going to have a run up to 50. So let's see. But on the dailies, it's not a lot of excitement there for me. XBI might be a good buy once interest rate settles. It's a big tech ETF. XBI, Spider Series Biotech ETF. I think, did you say that? Yeah, it was me who didn't read it properly. Yeah, a little bit boring. Again, another one that's a bit boring for me at the moment. It's just sideways, isn't it? Platinum, we looked at platinum, didn't we? We looked at platinum. Semiconductors, TQQQ is a sweet basket of tech, Pro shares, Ultra Pro. Yeah, so again, will have been rising as the Nasdaq has been riding. Biggest winning trade and biggest loss in your book. My losses are always the same. So it's something I talk about on the trading course. I have a fixed amount that I know I'm going to lose if I'm wrong on every trade. So for example, this other account that I've been running, we made $10 on that copper short so far. That's good, excellent. But so this FTSE trade, for example, that I've been running since Tuesday, the risk on that, I think it was about 150 quid maybe when I first put the trade on. So that's made, what's that? Not quite 3 times the risk. So for me, in a month, my other big winner this month was a Nasdaq trade on the Nasdaq. So for me, the idea is, and it's a sensible approach to trading. I think too many people get obsessed about being right. For me, what I want to see in a month, it's maybe 2 or 3 trades that make the month. So you have a couple of trades that might make, if you're risking, let's say you're risking 100 quid, losing 100 quid per trade, and you have a couple of trades that make 200 or 300 quid, and then you have a load of trades that some make 100, some lose 100. It's the big trades that make the difference. And I think that's the thing that so many people do not understand about trading. They come into it thinking it's about being right all the time, taking on massive risk, maybe blowing up half your account, then having a trade that goes really in your favour. It doesn't work that way. If you're going to do it sensibly and professionally, you know what your risk is on every trade. And the idea is when things start moving in your favour, you try and run it for as long as you can. So I don't have any crazy stories about any big losses. And that's it. That seems an appropriate place to wrap things up. That's the last question that came in. So, like I say, I think there's loads to watch next week. Stock indices still pushing higher. Dollar index, is it making a base down here? Okay, someone's just put a question. When trading CFDs, who's taking the other side of the trade? It's the broker. So it's an over-the-counter product. So whichever broker you trade with, if you're trading CFDs or spread bets, you're not trading direct into the real market. The broker is taking the other side of the trade. But again, don't overthink it because it's not really important. I mean, I've traded CFDs and spread bets for 20 years now. And I think it's a popular conspiracy that, the broker's the other side of the trade, they might move the market against me. But you've got to look at it this way. Think if I'm a broker and I've got 10,000 clients, if you buy a Nasdaq CFD, chances are in the next few seconds, someone's going to sell the Nasdaq CFD. So unless you're trading absolutely massive, you're completely irrelevant to the broker. So I always trade, this account here is a spread betting account. This account here that I'm using in these live streams with real money is a CFD account. The broker's the other side of the trade. I don't care. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, what we do? Dollar index. So dollar index next week. Let's see what happens down here. Oil, I do wonder. I mean, it's still strong. The trend is absolutely still strong. Where's it gone? I do wonder, does it start to struggle as it pushes back into the old range next week? But even that could be an opportunity. If we get a bit of a wiggle on oil, the old wiggle trade sets up, boom. If it sells back to the low 70s, which is only where it was on Monday of this week, that could be interesting. I think, I think perhaps down at 64, 65, oil had sold off too much. So I don't necessarily think we're going back down to the mid 60s. I do think maybe it'll cool off a bit, and maybe if it cools off, there's an opportunity. So that's that. Okay, so we'll wrap things up there. So to find out about the broker, and I've done this 10-minute video, like I say, saying why I use this broker. It's all to do with their analytical tools, and I mean analytics of my trading performance. There's a whole load of stuff they do. Very clever, very useful, I think. But I've done a video on that. Go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk. If you're on the website, a thing which should pop up that says, do you want to join the newsletter? If you're not on that, the newsletter goes out tomorrow. If it doesn't pop up, if you can drop me an email and let me know, and I'll try and figure out Any questions, drop me an email, dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. Like I say, there'll be no live stream next Friday because it is Good Friday, but the payrolls are out next Friday. So if there are out of hours markets trading, it could still be a bit of a crazy day on Friday. So I'll be back in 2 weeks time in April, and we'll see where we are then. But any questions, you can send me a chat or a form via the website. Lots of information on that new website. Just let me know. But otherwise, good luck with your trading. Don't go blowing your account up, and see you in a couple of weeks.